What's up, everybody? I'm sure you guys are ready to crush the Open. Hopefully this video helps you do just that. The Open is meant to be a qualifying process to make it to regionals and eventually the CrossFit Games. Even more so though, it's a community building event for people of all skill levels. The Open has been around for 8 years. This is going to be the 8th year, and every single year it's been 5 weeks, 1 workout each week. In those 8 years, these 5 movements have shown up every single year, and we've got a couple tips on each of them for you guys that hopefully help you crush it. So for each movement, there's a beginner and an advanced tip. We'll start with double unders. And the beginner tip for double unders, if you've maybe never done double unders before, something to just kind of help you in your warm-up, make sure that you get your rhythm and timing right. I like to call it the penguin because that's what it ends up looking like. But before you even pick up the rope, do a couple regular single jumps, and then as you start jumping to get that rhythm down, you can go jump, clap, jump, clap, jump, clap, jump, clap. Eventually, you're gonna jump a little higher and try to do 2 claps at the top, right? So it's jump, clap, clap, jump, clap, clap. And that will help you with the rhythm that you're gonna need for your dumbbell unders, the height for your jump, and that speed with the wrist to get the rope going under your feet 2 times. Once you've got that down, hopefully you're able to link together some double unders. An advanced tip, and something that I, 8 years into CrossFit, just added to my repertoire last year, is being able to go right into the double unders and taking out that initial single under before you get started. So it takes a little bit of work and practice, but instead of wasting time and energy, you can just go right into your double unders by getting a nice, good start. And that way your first rep counts toward whatever the rep count is on the workout. So those are the 2 double under tips. Moving on to thrusters. Thrusters are a tough one. They usually are relatively lighter in the Open, 75, 95 pounds. The beginner tip is to breathe at the top and learn to shorten your range of motion a little bit. So what I mean by that is if you can bring your squat a little bit wider than usual, it's gonna help cut the range of motion short as long as you can still get your hips below your knees, and make sure that at the top you've got your arms locked out, right? So if I'm approaching the barbell, a little bit of a wider stance at the bottom, lock out at the top. That's gonna help me cycle the reps a little bit quicker. Also, when I need a break, instead of putting the bar down, if I've got good positioning up here, not only can I talk, but I can breathe at the top and then keep my rhythm. That should help you on big sets of thrusters when you need a quick breather but don't necessarily need to drop the bar. An advanced tip on that, if you're trying to go as fast as possible, like last year's final Open workout had thrusters and double unders, and it was a sprint. You needed to be able to pull the bar down onto your shoulders instead of just letting it float down there. So that if you can add a second per rep, or I'm sorry, cut a second per rep from your time, that'll add up across 10 rounds, right? So pulling the bar back down onto your shoulders will help you pick up that cadence. Quick breath at the top. So moving on to the snatch. The snatch has been in the Open every year. Again, usually lighter, but like last year, there was a ladder where you had to build up, and in years past, they've done that as well. So a couple tips on that. For a beginner, take your time. If you're not comfortable with the snatch, very technical movement, take the time to set up, make sure you're in a good position, really get that jump and make sure you're getting under the bar. If we start to rush that and you're not comfortable with the movement, it can start getting really funky, blow up your back, waste a lot of energy. So take an extra second, make sure your hands are in the right place, get that chest up, make sure that your back is nice and flat, and then take your lift. An advanced tip is to be able to work with different techniques on the snatch. So there's a power snatch, a muscle snatch. There's an in-between of the 2 of those, which I'll show you now, and a squat snatch and a split snatch. But I think for the most part, if you're working with a lighter barbell, depending on what the workout is, you want to be able to do a muscle snatch just because it's going to be the quickest movement. So that's just bringing the bar straight up overhead. But if it starts to add up and there's a ton of reps, you might want to use your hips and do a power snatch. There's also the in-between of that. Stole this from Travis Williams. I think he calls it the snake snatch, where you kind of muscle it halfway up and then sneak under the bar a little bit at the end, and that saves your shoulders from having to pull all the way to the top. Now it looks like this. And that can just kind of keep it efficient across however many rounds you have with a bunch of snatches. So, now moving on to some gymnastics movements. Toe to bar and muscle ups have both been in the open every single year. Two toughies for sure. I like to use grips, not only to save my hands, because it is 5 weeks that you have to stay healthy, but also to save my grip. So if I can learn to hook in and not fatigue my grip, maybe I have to go back to the barbell like in, I think 2015, it was toe to bar, deadlifts and snatches. You want to be able to save your grip for the barbell and utilize these grips up on the pull-up bar to take a little bit of that stress away. I'm going to film a completely separate video on how I use my grips because it works for me a lot. But for now, try to get your grips on. A beginner tip on toe to bar is going to be, if you know you have to break them up, say it's a set of 8, which it has been in the past, rather than trying to fight for all 8 or doing 6, coming down, taking your time, and then getting back up to do 2, pick a number that you want to break it up on. As you come down, use your transition just as a turnaround and jump back up on the bar and go right to your next set, right? So if I'm going to do 4 and 4, I'll jump up, 1, 2, 3, 4, come down, turn around, and you can even set that up better. Say I was going from the barbell to the pull-up bar. If I did my first 4 facing this way, turn around, my final 4 facing this way, I'm ready to go right back to the barbell. So that's a beginner tip. Break them up, pick a number, use that break in the middle as a transition to turn around and face the other direction and hop right back up. The toe down method of toe to bar is a way to speed up the cadence. So rather than keeping your legs straight and letting them swing back and forth, if you can, once you get to the top, you kind of tuck your knees, kick the bar, point your toes down, and drive them kind of down and slightly back so that they break the plane. That's going to help you build some speed, right? Here's 2 regular ones with straight legs. And here's the bent knee. You can see how those are a little bit quicker to scoop the toes down and bring it right back up. It's not as long of a movement. So that will save you some time across toe to bar. Final movement, muscle up. I know it's probably the most technical movement that shows up in the open. Super tough. If you guys have never done a muscle up before, the open is an awesome time to get your first one. You're very motivated. Tons of people in the gym are getting their first muscle up. So don't give up if you don't have it yet. My dad got his first one last year. He's 63. Pretty cool. But a couple tips on that. Beginner, if you've never done it before, hips, hips, hips. Talk about that on the bar and the rings. And then singles are okay. If you get your first one, don't feel like you have to go for another one right away, because missing and failing muscle ups, super exhausting and fatiguing. So if you know you're not going to be able to string 2 in a row, do one, come down, quick break, do another. But hips on the bar muscle up. We want to hop up, get a big kip, and then instead of thinking about pulling ourselves to the bar, you want to think about pushing away from the bar, driving your hips toward the bar, and then your body is going to kind of carry that momentum up over the top. I'm going to show an exaggerated version of that. That obviously doesn't happen every time, but the more you can practice pushing back, driving your hips up to the bar, it's going to give you more mass to rotate around the top of the bar. So really think about your hips on bar muscle ups. Same exact thing on the rings. You guys can practice doing some swings. big hip drive and pulling your hips up to the rings. Eventually, you'll be able to rotate through into the bottom of that dip. So, if you've already got your muscle ups, you want to be able to link some, you want to move a little quicker. This kind of applies a little bit more to the rings than it does to the bar, but you want to be able to use some heel drive to get out of your dip. When I do my muscle ups, as I'm catching, my feet are out in front of me. As soon as I catch, the momentum of my torso coming forward drives my heels back around. I think about tucking them to my butt, and that helps me pop out of the dip. I'm gonna show that on the rings now. Hopefully you guys can see the kind of full movement here. And that is a wrap. I knew you guys were already ready to crush the open. Hopefully those tips helped. Those are 5 movements that not 100% guaranteeing are gonna show up, but those are highly likely to be in the open. You still have a week. Go practice them. Implement those little tips. If you're a coach, share those with all the members at your gym. I'm sure they'll be glad you did. Crush it, and I'll see you on the leaderboard.